What was the greatest crime in history? Gardner Art Museum, Boston. 1993, $100 million in art still missing. A clever start. To get the first of two guards away from his post, the thieves showed up dressed as cops with a warrant for his arrest. A tiny bit off topic, but it always scared me that it's illegal if you don't instantly submit to the person in an easily obtained uniform with an easily faked badge that insists she is a cop. I'm surprised this isn't abused more, to be honest. If it's true, it's Eduardo de Valferno's grift of the Mona Lisa. So Eduardo is an Argentine con artist. He has a great idea to steal the Mona Lisa and obviously sell it. Well, what if he could sell it more than once? Make more money, right? So commissions a great forger to make 6 copies of the Mona. He then meets some Italian carpenter working at the Louvre and convinces him to steal it, which he does by apparently just walking out with it under his coat. Eduardo then sells the copies to buyers, who, after hearing of the theft, which made international news and is one of the reasons the Mona Lisa is so famous today, all believe they have the real one. He makes off with the money. All the while the carpenter still has the original. Few years later he's caught trying to sell it. That story about the old guy who just set up a booth in front of a free zoo and collected money for like plus 25 years. Stanley Mark Rifkin, the IT administrator, well, equivalent at the time, who robbed Security Pacific National Bank in 1978 using only a payphone from the bank's lobby. He pretended to be from the international transfers team, called the wire transfer room, gave them the code for the day, which he had seen on a piece of paper in the wire room while working there, and asked for $10 million to be transferred to a Swiss bank account. The guy then flew to Switzerland, exchanged the money for diamonds, stored them in his checked luggage, about 5 kilograms of them, and flew back to the US. He only got caught when his former lawyer ratted him out. Rifkin had planned on giving the diamonds to the bank in exchange for letting him help fix the security issue he himself exploited. At the time, it was the largest bank heist in US history, and was in the Guinness Book of World Records. Please don't try to break this record. Edit. He only got caught when his former lawyer ratted him out. As a lawyer who takes privilege seriously. Genghis Khan killed around 10% of the world's population then. I went on a tour of the Rocks district in Sydney the other day to learn about its history as a British convict colony. As part of their punishment, the convicts were tasked with building the beginnings of modern-day Sydney. This included building the Bank of Australia. Several of the convicts returned at a later date to rob the bank in a covert manner. They knew where the secret tunnels were. They were never fully tried or charged for the robbery despite stealing what would now be worth $120 million odd. I'm not sure where this quote is from, and is also somewhat paraphrased, but it always stuck out to me. The perfect crime isn't the one that goes unsolved. It's the one that is solved with the wrong perpetrator. Double quote. There is almost certainly some massive crime that none of us have ever heard of because it was an open and shut case and some enemy of the person who actually got away with it spent the rest of his life in jail. A group of old men, ranging from their 40s to their late 70s, once robbed a bank by climbing down the long elevator shaft and drilling a hole in the side of the safety deposit box room. Over the course of 2 days they stole £14 million worth of jewelry, gold, and banknotes. It was apparently one last heist for the 3 or 4 of them, as they were career criminals. We will never know. Probably D.B. Cooper's heist. The man hijacked a 727. Got a ransom of what would be roughly $1. 2 million in today's money. Then vanished. It's been almost 50 years and no one's ever figured out who he was or where he went. He almost certainly died in his famous jump or shortly thereafter. He wasn't dressed for a jump like that and certainly wasn't dressed to survive on the ground in the mountains afterwards. He had no survival gear and there's no way he could have stashed any ahead of time and known where he was going to jump in the dark to land anywhere close to it. Also, The vast majority of the money never turned up. It's bizarre that no one has figured out who he was, because you'd think someone would have missed this guy, but to me it's virtually certain that he died jumping from the plane or shortly after. Henry Avery robbed a Spanish vessel worth $400 million and was never found in the 500 years since it happened. Uncharted 4. Probably the East Area Rapist original Night Stalker. Horrible. Awful crimes. But despite a number of sightings and many opportunities for him to be apprehended, he somehow was never caught. Creepiest part is that he's most likely still out there somewhere. Probably living a pretty innocuous life where the people around him have no idea what he did. It's crazy how prolific he was. He wrote to the media. He reached out for help to some mental health center. He was active in 3 different areas at different points. He had a lot of unique things that would have narrowed the list of suspects. Multiple sightings, witnesses, and was nearly caught a couple of times, yet he has somehow avoided capture and we've no clue who he was. Edit. The Rwandan genocide. They didn't kill the most people, but they killed people at a speed that the Nazis would envy. And they knew how to scare the UN peacekeeping force into staying away and to keep them from helping people. Also, most of the genocide was done with machetes and other sharp farming implements. Maybe not greatest, but definitely one of the most horrific. My mum telling a younger me the ice cream truck only plays music when they have run out of ice cream. Publish of the Energy movie. Escaping jail with a bar of soap. Scientology. The Lufthansa heist. The USA version of the Inbetweeners. The jewelry shop heist in GTA V. Stealing a balloon on Free Balloon Day. Down 28-3 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. I remember it was very late at night. Like 11:30. Big fella comes in screaming about God knows what. I think maybe Halpert had stolen his car. Something like that. So the big fella pulls out a sock filled with nickels. The Nazis taking all of Europe's art and gold, and then hiding it away. The Holodomor. Stalin decided that the Ukrainians were compatible with collectivism and ordered them all to be murdered by starvation. NKVD secret police sealed the country off. Stole all grain and food from the peasants. Stole all cooking utensils. Shot anyone caught stealing food. And forbade people from traveling between towns. Soviet officials went around each day collecting the corpses with carts and dumping them in mass graves. Towns were closely monitored to ensure they were starving properly. All deer, birds, cats, dogs, squirrels and so on disappeared as the peasants ate them all. People ate flowers, grass, and climbed trees to strip them of their leaves. Widespread cannibalism ensued. There were reports of parents butchering and eating their children. People dug up bodies to cannibalize them. After just a year, anywhere from 7 to 10 million people were murdered through starvation. Never before or since has the world seen such an effective elimination of a single group of people. This was the world's worst genocide. To this day, many people still deny that the event was genocide, outrageously claiming that the Ukrainians burned their own food and killed their own animals. What is my perfect crime? I break into Tiffany's at midnight. Do I go for the vault? No. I go for the chandelier. It's priceless. As I'm taking it down, a woman catches me. She tells me to stop. It's her father's business. She's Tiffany. I say no. We make love all night. In the morning, the cops come and I escape in one of their uniforms. I tell her to meet me in Mexico. But I go to Canada. I don't trust her. Besides, I like the cold. 30 years later, I get a postcard. I have a son and he's the chief of police. This is where the story gets interesting. I tell Tiffany to meet me in Paris by the Trocadero. She's been waiting for me all these years. She's never taken another lover. I don't care. I don't show up. I go to Berlin. That's where I stashed the chandelier. Lex Luthor. Stealing 40 cakes. That's as many as 4 tens. That's terrible. Seth Rollins cashing in his money in the bank briefcase during WrestleMania. Heist of the century. How has Pol Pot not been named? 1-3 million people killed. And I bet no one here knows that name off the top of their head. And what he did. You underestimate my strange interest in reading about dictators on Wikipedia. Khmer Rouge is right up there, buddy. I am very smit. Roman Reigns retiring The Undertaker at WM33. The Bowling Green Massacre. Never remember. Burning of Library of Alexandria. The Nazis killing 6 million Jews. Along with a bunch of other people. I stole a pack of gum once. The corporate and big banks about 10 years ago swindling all that money from the American people. Nearly crashing the economy. Toppling home prices with many foreclosed on. Putting millions out of work. Getting a huge bailout from our government that not one civilian saw a penny of. Using that bailout to line their own pockets and take cushy severance packages instead of pumping back into the economy as intended. And all of what they did still resonates with still poor economic conditions. And very few are held accountable. Burning the Library of Alexandria. It had stuff that set human civilization a 1,000 years back. I'd probably be getting sucked off by a robot on Jupiter RN, but alas. That's hilariously overblown. The murder of John F. Kennedy. To make it worse, even some of the Warren Commission members weren't satisfied with the robustness of the conclusions of the report. And the presence of some of those members on the panel in the first place has to be looked at askance. Sykes-Picot. It shaped the Middle East into what it is today. The Bay of Tonkin incident. Or the lack thereof. That shirt you're wearing. I am not sure how you are defining great, but here are some of the most notorious or famous in the US. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The assassination of John F. Kennedy and later Robert Kennedy. The assassination of Martin Luther King. The Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago in 1929. The Lindbergh baby kidnapping. The Patty Hearst kidnapping. The Black Dahlia murder. The Mason family murders. The murder of Nicole Simpson, O.J. Simpson's wife. The Oklahoma City bombing. The Columbine massacre. The murder of John Bennett Ramsey. Internationally notorious or famous. The Jack the Ripper murders, the robbery of the Crimean Gold in England. Also known as the Great Train Robbery. Gavrilo Princip shot Archduke Ferdinand. Causing World War I. Which led to World War II. The Cold War. And the current GWOT. Hundreds of millions of deaths stemming from the proximate cause of one murder. Couple options. Isabella Gardner Museum heist. Or sinking of the USS Maine. The Maine was sunk outside of Havana. And due to Pulitzer and Hearst inventing yellow journalism, began the Spanish-American War. Put 20% interest rate on a credit card and giving it to an 18-year-old kid. No questions asked. Crime still going on today. The greatest crimes in the world are not committed by people breaking the rules, but by people following the rules. It's people who follow orders that drop bombs and massacre villages. Rapists are worse than World War II pilots. Thanks.